Hey, what's going on, everybody? On today's show, we are going to be talking about some more or less breaking news because yesterday, Anthropic released their next model, their next mode called Claude 3.7 Sonnet. So maybe we were thinking it was going to be a 4, but they went two decimals up and they went to 3.7. But they also announced something called Claude Code. And there is really more than meets the eye with this particular model. And so that's what we're really going to be talking about on the show today. I've had some time to play with it. We also have our trusted advisors, people like Ethan Malik, who typically nowadays gets access before everybody else does. And so when he drops a blog post or otherwise, he's already played with it, as well as some other things we picked up along the way. So we're going to talk all about 3.7. Does it seem worth it? Do the improvements seem different enough? How does it compare with things like Grok 3 and other models that are out there? That's what we're talking about on the show today. It's all about Claude 3.7. So this is the Daily AI Show. Today is February 25th, 2025. And with me today, we have Junmi, Beth, Andy, and I'm Brian. So I will jump off and say that I instantly got frustrated with the free side of it and hitting tokens. And so I just bit the bullet and paid for Claude for an entire year because I just couldn't. I couldn't do the month to month. I couldn't. It was killing me. And Claude's like, save 10%, $216. I'm like, sold, done. And then I put a note in my calendar for February 20th of 2026 to say, check on that annual Claude membership that's about to come due again and make sure you still want it, because that would be a hard thing. But my thing on it is, I don't know about you guys, Claude is very powerful, and I've turned it on and turned it off on the pro side several times over the month. Sometimes I'm training on it, so I'll turn it back on again. But honestly, it's so good, and we know it's so good. And this is really one of the tools that I think my daughter actually could really, really learn AI on, because of the way it builds things side by side. So I just wanted to throw that out there as the start of the conversation, that all morning I've been playing with the paid version of it, which definitely gave me the token limit and really allowed me to fully explore what 3.7 can do. But what has been your guys? By the way, Carl joined us as well. But what has been your guys' initial thoughts? Obviously, it came out yesterday. Have you had a chance to play with it? Do you have the paid side? What have you found? What have you seen out there?
I played with it a little bit last night. One of the typical things to create is like a self-motivating snake game, right?
Mhm.
So code me the snake game. Pink snake, purple food, right? Because I want to be different and unique. And most people are saying that that is like a one shot um game that can just be created. There were some things for me in 3.7. It definitely got there. Took me 3 prompts. But your mileage might vary. It's still amazing, really like exciting. It also I copied somebody else's thing about a multimodal music visualizer. And then it was visualizing music that I didn't understand. I was like, "Oh, wait. I mean the Western modes. Sorry. We have fewer of them than countries that have quarter tones and things like that." So, yeah, I found it really, engaging. It takes me longer to um test something with writing than it does can you make this visual happen for me. But I was impressed. I'm back with Claude. My boyfriend's back, right? Like but ah, me and ChatGPT are not happy with each other. I don't know why you are doing me like that. But yes, Claude, I feel great about it. And yeah. Who else?
Definitely feel like Reddit is, or rather, ChatGPT is messing with me. And man, their updates on 4.0 are just daily. I'll use the polite term, upsetting me. I wanted to use a better way to say that. Not the topic of today's show. We're going to talk about how amazing Claude is, because 4.0 can kiss my, yeah. Andy, what were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say I have not paid for Claude yet, but I will. Eventually I will. Um, I ran into the token limits in a single, interaction with 3.7 today, this morning when I was playing with it. But all I had to do was start a new chat, right? So it wasn't blocking me other than, with the paid version, I would have been able to continue in a single thread and maintain a much longer context window effectively because what they're doing is they're cutting me off in that. So don't feel like it's so hampered or hobbled that you can't play with it. It's really very competent even in the free version. So go get it. 3.7 is good. The point I will make though is that when you look at the table of comparisons on various benchmarks, it doesn't really rise to the level of, you know, passing Grok 3 beta or DeepSeek. It's numbers are lower, particularly, for example, on high school math competition. So high school math should not be that difficult. Uh, it gets 61.3% compared to 83.9% for Grok 3. That's a big difference. Now, with extended thinking, which is what we'll talk about shortly here, which is one of the capabilities of the new 3.7 Sonnet, uh, it gets up to 80%, which is just 4% behind. Um, well, no, I'm sorry. When Grok 3 applies extended thinking, it goes to 93.3% compared to 80% for Claude 3.7
Mm.
Sonnet. So when you do a side-by-side comparison on some of the more difficult benchmarks, it's not really out there at the edge of the envelope, but it has a lot of virtues that are unrelated to doing mathematics. And I'll finalize by saying what what the commentators are saying about Claude 3.7 Sonnet is that it's a major advance in coding capability. 2.5 Sonnet was arguably one of the best coders out there. It's integrated in a number of major agentic coding platforms. 3.7 Sonnet is better than that, and it now adds a new feature, which is you can code if you're a developer, you can code uh, in your terminal, and you can access and use 3.7 Sonnet right in terminal. You don't have to go over to Claude and cut and paste and have it evaluate. It's integrated with this new feature. I haven't touched that yet. Did this thing just come out yesterday? It's like, how fast do we have to be to really have experience with these?
The coding is so cool. I will say that I'll show some examples on my screen here in a minute, but watching it write and rewrite code for somebody who doesn't write code is amazing. So, for instance, Beth, you were talking about this too. I don't know if you had an experience. So, I had 4 different use cases that I created. I'll show them in a second here. I had it completely do full research on what teenagers, since this was on my mind from yesterday's show, what teenagers would need to know to be future ready using AI. So I had to do all the research and then go build the solution for me. And that's really what I told it to do. This is what I want you to do. Go figure this out on your own, then go build this. And I think that really gets to the heart of what I see that 3.7 is doing a really good job. And it's also what they promote, which is that it will figure out for you whether it needs to do the deep researching or whether it needs to do the more like basic, faster iterations on it. But when you layer on top of that, the fact that it will frankly code the whole thing and make a usable version of it, I'm looking at a usable version of the demo for how I would tell parents that this was a good $99 product. Cause that was like one of the things I said. Hey, if I was going to build a $99 training, what would this look like? It created the material I would need to show this to parents to sell them on the $99 material. That was one prompt, right? Another example of this is I said, hey, create I said I'm sitting at my desk right now. Create me tell me what the best generative AI tool would be for me to use right now and then go create it. So you know what it did? It created me a task tracker and timer. And I said, "Oh, this is pretty good, but I bet you can do better." And we went back and forth to the point where now if I say my task is to go write a blog on such and such a topic, I'll use Shadow AI since that's one of our previous conversations, then it goes and not only starts the timer, it knows how long I have to complete the task, gives me Claude prompts that might help me do further research, does the further research, then tells me the best order that I should break down and work on that blog. That was like 4 prompts, and it's a workable version on my computer right now. Tell me another tool that's capable of doing this. There isn't, right? There isn't. There's that you would have to go through an API, you would have to deploy it somewhere. I'm actually using within minutes in some cases, 10 minutes in one of them, and it's still breaking on a different project that I'm working on. Because it's having trouble going through the research. But much like a cursor or replit, where I've watched Andy go through and doing these kind of things, you're watching it go back through the code, and it literally is showing you deleting lines. It's like that didn't work for me. And also, it just throws up codes that says like cursor or replit. Do you want me to fix this? And you're like, yeah, if you ran into a code problem, sure, click, yeah, fix that. And then it'll go back through the code and run it until it has another workable version for you to use. I had to do our show yesterday. I gave it the entire transcript of the show yesterday and had to create an interactive user experience that goes on to a deeper dive on any topic that we give it. So I gave it the transcript from the show and then had to do that. I mean, had to make a company research tool. I had to create a Harry Potter quiz that helps people with kids with anxiety. This all happened from the time that I paid. This is why I want to get this across. I paid for this. This is 13 a.m. my time on the East Coast. I paid for this around 9:05. Everything I told you exists and is workable since then.
Yep.
Tell me another tool that can do this. And that's why I paid for the year, because I knew how powerful it was going to be.
So I agree. There are tools that could get you there, but one of the things that I think is distinct about Claude, and I'd love to hear what Carl and Junmi think as well, is like this nebulous like vibe coding, but with discernment. Right? Like, it was trained in taste. Like, it's much more likely to get to the place where you're satisfied with it without having to, uh, to to give a bunch more descriptions or, get sort of lost on something. Junior, Carl, I know you haven't had a chance to weigh in.
For me, I don't think it'll replace what I'm doing with what I'm doing with deep research for clients. It's just like, especially what I've been using deep research for, because I compared some of the stuff that I use it with client work, and it's like, okay, it's good, but when you put the deep research on top of it, like I I can't move away from that. Like, I tried it with a couple things. Now, I tried it with some of the demos that we normally do, and it does produce a better job. But I'm so invested in so many different projects that it's really difficult to switch off. Like, it would have to be that much better, and aren't we all waiting for 4.5 to come out too? So for me personally, it's fun to I spent like an hour and a half yesterday in terminal actual coding. That's not 100%. Still prefer to code in VSC and in Cursor just because I can control it much better and I can spot things and I'm more particular like that. But it is kind of cool to see people who don't code be able to see that, and it's getting better and better. And so that's the cool part. I think though, from a usability perspective, I for me, whatever the benchmarks are now, there isn't really that much of a difference. So, and because my APIs are all connected and I use the Claude API so I can switch them too, which is kind of cool. Um, I still am just gonna keep my same workflow. Like whenever I see somebody, I see people go, "Oh, I canceled this." And like, when the next thing comes out, you're gonna be on the same thing, saying the exact same thing. So, um, I think we're kind of getting to the point where everything's kind of par. So it's like it's your personal preference. Which one do you like? And if you like this, some people are diehard Claude, some people diehard OpenAI, some people diehard Grok, whatever it is. So I feel it's like, cool, I have another tool in case something else doesn't work. I want to use it. I can switch back and forth. Like I'm using it part of our try to replace paid search activities. So I had that as part of the workflow. So I told the intern, I'm like, okay, use this tool too, use the same prompt, follow these exact same instructions, do not deviate. I'll leave it up to you which one you think applies, or maybe switch up applications every one to see what happens, but just go apply with it. Um and go to town. The only problem is it's hard to explain. It's like, what is Claude? What the hell? It's like, oh, it's this and this, this. It's like, oh, okay. So, at that level, you have to re-explain what the tool is and what it, what it does. And it's like, oh, it's OpenAI's competitor. It's good for this. It's like very much the same. Some people say it's better. Some people, but it's all kind of in the same sphere. So you got to use it too. So, but I'm using that as part of the test for the paid search activity.
And it's worth mentioning too that 3.7 as of yesterday, if you go into Perplexity, Sonnet, if in the Pro at least, 3.7 was almost immediately defaulted as because 3.5 was before that. Now you can switch through models, and I think to your point, Carl, the difference here is we're talking about API usage versus in workflows like you're talking about versus a tool like Claude or ChatGPT. ChatGPT has its downfalls. We know that. We talk about it all the time. Can't set temperature. I'm having context window length where it just stops with its answers. And it's like, it told me it's protecting itself against long run on answers. I'm like, yes, but the custom GPT actually needs an answer that long. You're just making it worse for me. So there's the tools and what you would use a tool for. Why would you go into Claude as opposed to ChatGPT and use that tool? Well, I talked about some of my use cases, that left and right, watching the code, building applications. But that doesn't change the fact that I can go into, in fact, I'm doing it right now. I'm in Perplexity right now, and I'm doing research, deep research using 3.7, whereas yesterday I only had 3.5 or the day before. So instantly, my workflows now, you got to test, right? I mean, I know, Carl, you wouldn't just randomly be like 3.7 for everybody. It could break stuff. It could, right? We've seen this all the time where a new model isn't always better for everything. But if you're being LLM agnostic and you are making sure that you're not painting yourself in a corner, like you were saying, Carl, I think there's two sides of this. Where does Claude.ai solve problems for you? Maybe through their projects, maybe through the way they do the side by side. And there's certain use cases for that. Don't forget, though, I don't have any internet research on there. So anything I build in Claude from Claude.ai, it has to already have existed in the knowledge base, which is large. I don't know how large it was for 3.7, but it's large. But that does restrict me from doing up-to-date company research because I can't do that. But I could do it using 3.7 through Perplexity because I can sandwich. Perplexity does a phenomenal job of sandwiching deep research on top of a model, right? So now I have the best of both worlds if I'm doing it through Perplexity, but it's a different use case than if I'm using it in Claude.
Yeah, but you can also work around that by doing deep research in another model,
Yeah, of course.
exporting that, giving it to Claude, and then Claude has the information.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, you're right. You could, if you wanted to stay inside of Claude and do that. And yes, I understand. I see people in the chats talking about this. I get it. Not everybody wants to pay for 3 or 4 different tools. At this point, I pay for OpenAI. I have 2 different accounts on OpenAI. I have Perplexity for a year and I have Claude for a year. I get it. That's not everybody. But I'm literally running things on one screen and working on another. And in some cases this morning, I had one fix going in ChatGPT while I was also doing another fix in Claude. And I opened 4 Claude windows and I had them all concurrently working on different projects together. Kind of like Carl showed us a couple weeks ago with Operator. Hey, I can just open up another window. I can just open up another window and get it going on some other project I have going on. So I had a coworker who brought back a feedback from a custom GPT I did, but I was able to let that run and get fixed while I turned my attention to something else. And to me, this is what we're talking about. Finding the tools that work for you that allow AI to be your coworker. So you can actually stop looking at the screen and look at something else. Or sometimes I'll get up and I'll go, grab a bite to eat in the kitchen or something like that because I work from home. I have started projects before and let it run because I know it's going to be longer, deep research and then gone to work out. It's not going to take the whole time I'm working out. I get that, but it'll be done when I get back. So I think that's the difference. That's the pivot here, is thinking about working alongside AI. And I think Claude 3.7 does a great job of allowing you to work alongside it without removing the human from the process. What do you think, Jimmy?
I think you're right. The big takeaway that I took from the various announcements, because it wasn't just 3.7 Sonnet, they also released Claude Code
Yep.
into a research preview. They even released a article that broke down the thinking or reasoning process, which I appreciated personally because it gives a insight into what they're focusing on in terms of their reasoning process. And I think the thing that might be the the big aha, or I shouldn't call it the aha moment, but the big takeaway here is a tiny little thing that they mentioned, which was being extended thinking and being able to control how much more thinking you want to apply to your reasoning.
Oh, the token
So
limits. Yeah.
yeah, so you can do the full 128K token limits. You can control how much thinking and reasoning is applied to your query, and this can all be and this can be all controlled up to down to the token number. So in budgetary terms, you can fine tune, for lack of a better term, uh, whatever your process is. So this will be a lot. I think this will be a lot more important to people who are building systems or automations or things like that. So various components. So being able to tweak like this question on average only needs half the tokens. So I can save myself some money there. And this is, for, like I said, automations and systems that are just going to be running over and over and over again. All right. So I think that extended thinking and being able to control it on a sliding scale, I think that's going to be a key selling point for choosing Claude over something like OpenAI, because OpenAI has your low, medium, high, right, for its reasoning currently. And so I think you're just going to see a more economic choice for system builders to use that piece. Now, I haven't had time to work with all of the different pieces, but what they've said about Claude Code sounds really interesting as well.
Mhm.
I mean, you've already identified huge leaps in being able to build code and run that code right from that interface, which is a huge get for Anthropic. But I think that Claude Code, being able to install it onto your local system and giving it access to your code base is going to give more options for the institutional programmers, right? And being able to bring Claude somewhat safely into their closed environment, just so that they can run it and see, oh, how does this work? Or just, as part of the normal development process. And that leads me to my final highlight along code is in the breakdown of the like percentages of recognized code base and languages and things like that, it scored 78% on COBOL, right? So COBOL's an old language, but it's an institution and infrastructure language. It is in everything that you think is old, like all the government systems are built in COBOL, right? And if you compare it to everything else that they showed, that we're seeing like 22% or 12% in the other LLMs or the other AI regarding COBOL. So this might be a play into their overall strategy, which seems to double down on Claude as the coder's dream. If you want to do anything with code, whether or not you're coming in with no code experience and just want to see those that programming being built right in front of you, or you want to build it into a larger system or to help you update those older systems, because I can tell you migrating or upgrading from one code base to another or changing out that old system for a new one, that is incredibly difficult and time consuming. So
Yeah,
if Claude can help in any of that, I think that's a big win for them.
I agree with you. I think there's clearly a reason they broke out Claude Code as a separate announcement and part of, like, it's not 3.7, right? It's 3.7 and Claude Code, even in their blog that they wrote about that, which I think makes a lot of sense. You're probably right, Jimmy. Again, this is where my inexperience, you have way more than I do in this area, but just from what I can basically see, it makes sense to me that Claude would do this. It also makes sense to me that Anthropic may make a play at Make or Zapier in the future, where they start offering, because they're getting so good at what they can do for Claude, would they start offering basically all the connectors that you need through APIs and OAuths and stuff like that. But think about that. Like, Make is kind of doing that now. Um, Zapier, I know, is doing it where they sort of had the agent idea and it'll help you build things or whatever. But it almost seems like it wouldn't be such a leap. I don't know, by the way, if Anthropic has any intent to do this, but it wouldn't be a leap to me to see them come out and say, "Oh, by the way, we've now been partnering and connecting all these different, we now connect to EDU, the most popular things from Slack to Airtable to Google, whatever Drive and all that kind of stuff. And now not only can you do this code directly in Claude, you could actually just run it, kind of like what I was just doing, but it'd be full automations where it's just delivering it right there in the thing. I mean, what's to stop that? Yeah, I don't know if that's where their roadmap is at all, but I wouldn't be surprised by it. Much like I saw the announcement, we'll talk about it tomorrow on the news show, I'm sure, but like Perplexity made an announcement that they're like building an agentic browser. I'm like, that makes sense. That's exactly where you kind of expect Perplexity to go. And you're okay. I see the roadmap there. Um, I agree with you anyway on the Claude Code side of it. I'm not talented enough to like stress test it or have any real opinion on it, but it is very cool. I think that, and you're right.
I mean, I want to summarize my main takeaways from this. One is, and I think this is getting a lot of commentary in the newsletters, et cetera, is this idea of using test time compute for reasoning and being able to allocate that and scale it. So that's a feature that's on almost all the frontier models now. OpenAI has it, DeepSeek has it, Alibaba, Google DeepMind, and X. All of them have the ability to do extended thinking. What's that?
Microsoft Copilot, by the way, has Think Deeper. It sucks, really, because I did a PO comparing all of them. It's terrible, but it's there.
Okay, good. I didn't mention them, but only because I've completely forgotten about Copilot.
Everyone forgets them.
Okay, so all of them have that, but I think what's unique about what Claude 3.7 does is it automatically scales. So if you're working with the 3.7 Sonnet chatbot, it'll it'll determine itself whether your prompt requires any extended thinking and apply test time compute to do reasoning around that if it's necessary. And that's, I think, a feature that's going to be natural in most advanced systems in the future. You're not going to need to control it via the API and say, I give you a budget of 50,000 tokens of extended thinking. Don't go beyond that. You won't need to do that. The system itself will determine whether or not additional compute is required in order to accomplish the reasoning that's indicated by whatever your prompt is. So that's the thing that's happening in these models that I think is really important. It's related to reasoning, and it's this test time compute budgeting that you can do, like, okay, think harder, that kind of thing. The next thing is what Beth used the term, which is the term of art now that's coming out, which is vibe coding. And it was Andre Karpathy who coined that term. And this is the feature that Brian was talking about, where he can build a front end app in Claude 3.7 Sonnet and run it right there. And another term that's used that is LLM native coding, right? So you're working within a large language model and you're coding in that model just with natural language prompts, and it's going to develop code and run that code for you. So you can develop a mini application right in Claude for $20 a month, right? So you can build as many apps as you want to, And I think if you just accept the fact that Claude 3.5 originally and now 3.7 is at the frontier of coding capabilities, then this is the place to play with that vibe coding idea.
I like that. I haven't heard that before. Vibe coding. Andy, it's kind of like what you said yesterday, and this is going to be a little meta, but I'm going to bring it up on the screen because this is exactly kind of what you were just saying. I think. So let me share this really quick. Which one is it? Shoot, interactive.
While you're doing that, I'll just say I started out by saying there's three things that I take away. The third one that I didn't just mention now was the Claude Code, right? So the ability for developers to use the extensive capabilities of Claude 3.7 in their own it's sort of development environment. That's going to be a major breakthrough.
Yeah, and this is like, okay, so this is the one where it took yesterday's topic and broke it down into a more interactive experience for like a viewer or listener. Just that. So we're always thinking about like, well, what would it be like if we took one of our topics and just made it more interactive? What if that was on our website? What if you went to the dailyishow.com and for every show we did within a day or two, there was something that looked something like this that was interactive on that topic? Maybe you wanted to delve deeper. Maybe you wanted to explore the topic further than we took it on a particular show. What does that look like? And so to your point, Andy, like I want to see this visually. I want to have an MVP. I want to have something that I can look at and mess with and play with. And so you can see that this built this fairly quickly, breaking down the ideas. It gives me tabs to bump through, talking about different key advantages and things like that. Gave me some cost benefit analysis at the bottom here. If we go to strategic approaches, it says in the podcast, Andy outlined three key strategic approaches that successful AI entrepreneurs can use to differentiate themselves in an increasing competitive landscape. And so I can actually click through those three competitive advantages that you mentioned, Andy, and then like the human advantage of it. So, and then it breaks that down as more like really nice, really easy. Now, I might iterate on this. We might look at this as a team and say, like, yeah, if we could do that, I bet you could do this. But man, isn't it nice to just get something that's just visual that I can click through, that I can have a general idea of. And now what's different about this visual way of using LLMs is previously I would see this in a text thread, in a chat thread, and it would say, well, this is what I would put in this section. But I might miss that there may need to be better updates to that area because I'm looking at it as all one chat thread. And yes, we have Canvas on the OpenAI side of things, which is very helpful. But isn't it better if we have something here and I'm able to read this and I easily identify that the quotes that it's pulling in are wrong? And then I'm like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing here because it's so easy for me to understand this section visually. And now I can very easily go in there and make adjustments to Claude and say, hey, you're pulling in the wrong information here, or what I meant in this area is this. And now I'm just having a conversation back and forth with Claude based on this initial thing, or I scrap it and I start over because it didn't get anywhere close to it. So I think this is just a really cool a way of visually working with LLMs. I'm not saying this doesn't exist in other places, but I'm just saying it's damn easy inside of Claude with 3.7. And that's why I say this is like a really easy place for my daughter to get more reps with AI, with LLMs, because this is going to be more for her. It's helpful for me at 47. It's going to be more helpful for her at 14 because she can come up with ideas and she can visually see them on the side. She can start doing critical thinking skills back and forth and saying, well, where did that not come up with the best answer? How would I fix that? How do I tell Claude, the AI, to do better? Or what do I need to say different? And she can just work back and forth on this, not this particular topic. But maybe she would do something like the nope, not stop sharing. Sorry, Beth. One more time. Not stop, switch. Use this one instead is what I meant to say. So this one is like silly, right? This is, imagine a child that's like into Harry Potter, but they're also trying to find ways that they can manage their own anxiety. And so this is a sort of silly little quiz that brings in a topic that would be interesting to a child, but is also helping them with something that they maybe struggle with. And so you could see a parent doing this and saying like, oh, a child loves dinosaurs. Is there something we could do at bedtime? I think about all the nights I sat up in my daughter's bedroom as a parent trying to come up with solutions for anxiety with a child that couldn't really verbalize always how it was affecting her, except that what we knew was a quiet mind was a dangerous mind. And I think anybody with anxiety would talk about that. When things go quiet in the room and there's not something to keep her attention, her mind goes wild. Right. So as a child, I now as a parent, I go, oh my God, I have this tool in Claude. So I can literally, I can see that bedtime is going south at 9, go to my computer, go to Claude as a parent, build something with dinosaurs and have it up in the room on a laptop, working and laughing along with my child, trying to help them move their brain back into a topic that would be more helpful to them. That's just
Yeah,
one.
Brian, talk about how you would take the code that's been generated to produce this in Claude's account for you, how you would put that on the other laptop. Is there an export function for this that will or share function that allows you to put it to her account with Claude, or does it really require a deployment on a separate server?
I'm not sure.
I
Publish and copyright. Publish this artifact and make it accessible to anyone on the internet. Your
Yeah.
chat will remain private. So yes. so, so
Yeah.
yes, apparently only you have
Publish it.
access to it.
I think if you do it in a cloud project, you can share the project as well, so you could conceivably share the code, right?
Yeah.
Like in what you're talking about with your daughter as opposed to the kid who, just wants the access to the dinosaur or whatever. Also, like, Claude could write you goodnight stories, and maybe, that could be an excellent, bedtime routine as well, just saying. What is old is yay.
So here's another one, a company research tool where this one's not working the way it should work. What it should be doing is I give it any company and it goes and does detailed research on all these different areas. This is something we use in sales all the time. We always want to know. Now, this one is going to be limited because it doesn't have the internet. But I wanted to see what it would do by using one of my more advanced custom GPT prompts, which I pasted directly into here. And my prompt was simple. Hey, take this custom GPT that I've already created and make it more interactive. Right? So now all these custom GPTs that you may have or whatever, and you're like, yeah, they're fine, but what would it visually look like? What could I possibly do if there was colors and graphics and 3D images and animations moving on a screen? How might that bring this custom GPT to life? And it's not going to be the right solution for all projects. It's just not. But there's a lot of them where it would. Or you might want to visually see it here to have Claude help you improve your prompting to go back over to custom GPT. That would also work. Because if you're more of a visual learner, well, hey, Claude, go create a visual representation of what I'm trying to accomplish here. And then the ultimate goal is for you to help me improve my prompting so I can do better with it. So, like, that was another one. Here's the AI powered timer. I actually think this one is cool as hell. So if you say on this one, and it came up with this idea, and I just iterated with Claude to make it better. But basically, if I say I'm writing a new blog about shadow AI and how it could have a big impact on businesses, and I say analyze and start the timer, look what it does. It does initial research for me on stealth AI. It gives me a bunch of Claude prompts with copy prompts on them that it kind of came up with on its own on how to do that. But I could use these to further enhance my research on stealth AI. It gave me resources, Harvard Business Review, that again, older, right? 2023, because I don't have the value of the internet here, but there's still stuff in there that I can look up. And then it gives me next steps on how I might want to maximize my 29 minutes that I've allotted that I said I have to work on this project. So let's say you want to really hold yourself to it and you're like, I have to produce a first draft of this and I have 30 minutes. You could use a simple tool like this to really help you get started and stay on task for doing it. And of course, I don't have to stop here. I could go down here and keep working with Claude on the side to further refine and work this project. But it's kind of a cool little, like, hey, Claude, what would be super helpful to me right now? It's like something to help you stay on task. And I was like, how do you know that about me, Claude? Um, how do you know that I have problems and I'm squirrel all the time? And then this one, this is the last one I had. This was the teenager one that I mentioned. Future ready AI companion, preparing your teams to thrive in a world where AI is your coworker, not just your tool. It made this little landing page for just $99 for full access, right? Start your journey. And it's got learning paths in there, and it mocked up where these modules would go in there. And then it's got AI projects that the team might work on, from assisted storytelling to business plans to environmental data analysis. It's telling us how this, it doesn't work. I'm not saying this is a fully functional model, but it's giving us updates on collaboration, where that teenager is through this training system. It starts giving suggestions on career paths based on what the teenager is working on and what suggested career paths might be really relevant to them at the end of it. But this is really just meant to, like, if we started over here at the beginning, this is meant to show, this is like a landing page or a demo where you would fill it in with fake information for like a particular teenager. And then you would send that and you'd say, like, hey, this is what we do. This is how we do this. But again, I'm probably not going to deploy this code, but it's really, really cool that I'm able to work through some of the initial ideas I have with Claude if I can visually see it first. So those are all the different ones that I did. And I think this last one was not using the coding tool. I actually gave it the conundrum that we were talking about last week, and I did a Saturday episode on or whatever. And what's throws you off here is how fast 3.7 is, that we would initially not see this as maybe deeper research. But I think it actually is. It's just that it's not going out and sourcing 37 different cited sources, not like Perplexity, right? But it's very, very fast at putting back this very detailed, very good answer on this particular conundrum, because I had it researching both sides of it. So not a coding aspect. I'm not asking for anything visual here. This was me just using the power of 3.7 and to test just how fast it could come back with a qualified answer. And it's like instantaneous. And that's one of the things Anthropic said, is like, it's very fast. And I'm like, yeah, it is. It's very fast.
So there are a couple things that just need to be highlighted, I think, in terms of Anthropic and this drop. One, it was available for everybody. There was not, we're rolling it out slowly. When they made the announcement, it was available. Now they made an like they put it up on Amazon Bedrock, saying it was available February 19th. So they may have slow rolled it outside of the news cycle. And I'd like, do that. Yes, that's wonderful. I appreciate that. No problem. The other thing is that they very specifically said we're not chasing the comparison metrics. They gave them to us, but what they're really going after is user experience. So Claude feels more human when I'm engaging with it.
Mhm.
That's not vibe coding. That's just vibe, right? But that kind of threading the needle there, I think it's kind of like Midjourney. I think Claude is definitely has a fan base that is just excited about it. And so to be able to give a little bit of control, say, yeah, no, I would like a deeper thought as this process. I'm just going to click this little toggle. It's going to do the same thing. I don't want it the next time. I'm going to click the toggle off. Like if ChatGPT blew up because it created a user interface that was easier to engage with, Claude is actually trying to create, like, that seems to be their thing, a user experience that is a higher quality than what you're getting in the other places. And
100.
I'm for it. Yes.
Yeah. The visual side of it is the user experience for me. Now, that may just, to your point, Beth, that may just be what speaks to me. But it adds another element. It really feels more, I don't know that as multimodal is the answer. I think in short period, it'll also be able to produce audio. Maybe initially these are more like throwback to MIDI sounds and stuff like that we used to have. But you can imagine how that might start being part of it. And is actually able to play sound to you. Or maybe I'm able to do this, but in sometime later this year, I'm also able to have an interactive voice conversation with the deployed AI thing I just built. Like, imagine that. Like, it's good right now. Imagine if when you get to this, I had a little bot at the bottom of it and I could be like, hey, I'm more interested in how this might affect my teenager, blah, blah, blah. And now it's like acting as a chatbot on that screen. And now there's voice in it, or it's producing sound back which also could be really, really cool on there as well. So I don't know. I think the opportunities are as vast and as deep as your mind will allow you to go. And that's what's exciting to me is go in there and play. Um, you have to pay for it because you're going to run into token limits if you're not. But for $20, if you want to see what's what, I mean, and you have the $20 disposable to do it, we had people in our chat that were like, hold on, Brian, I'm building something that I need this for right now. So what's the cost comparison to $20, right? I don't know. It's different for everybody, but it might be valuable to you.
Right.
I don't know. The Claude is very cool. Somebody said in the comments, I think Cisco's saying it, they have a similar path to OpenAI. I actually disagree with that. I think Claude is doing Anthropic's doing Anthropic things. And I actually get the impression that they're not, we've said this before, they're not trying to keep up with the Joneses. I almost
No.
feel like Anthropic has their plan.
I think Cisco is talking like mission, right? Like the ultimate plan, not the rollout plan.
Oh.
Because if we remember, and I made that comment in the chat too, the founders of Anthropic were like OpenAI people. And when you hear Dario Amodei, who's the vocal founder, um, talk about the decision to go and do this other thing, he's very clear. I wanted to make sure that we could follow what was working, right? Which was the old more time, more power, more data, right? Like I think when he was talking about it, they were at the $10,000 level, right? So then 100,000, million, 10 million, etc. And so it's kind of funny. Yeah, I think he just wanted to be he just wanted to make sure that it was going to be in his control, that they could follow the path that OpenAI was also on, right? And OpenAI sort of the whole time had more fingers in pots. I'm gonna mix metaphors. Stick your toe in the stew and see. Yes.
Yeah. Ask Claude. Ask Claude. We can get more metaphors. I always mix this up too, so I'm laughing at it. I do have like sort of a final question here, and this is just the people who are on our chat because there was mention of it. This is I'm pivoting, so just here it comes. But people were asking about two things. One, they want more of the sci-fi AI show. So Beth, Jimmy, get on that. Make it happen, make it so. And then also people are asking about the daily AI show merch. We don't have merch right now. I mean, I don't have a mug that says the Daily AI Show on. I think Beth, you have like one thing that you have or whatever. So I'd just be curious for anybody that's listening to this. We'll just give you a couple seconds here. Like throw in the chat if you have any interest in that. I just think it's one of those things that like, sure, we'll do it if people are excited about it. Happy to create something and have it, drop shipped or whatever. But what would you want? Do you want a mug? Do you want a hoodie? Do you want a t-shirt? Do you want to like I'm just curious what people might say to this. So I don't know what anybody would say, but since you came up in the chat, I'm curious.
We're getting yes, and every time I wear the DOS hat, we get more stuff about that. So
People
yes.
asking about it.
Yep. And stay tuned for news about a live taping of the
Really?
the sci-fi AI show. Yes.
No dates on that just yet.
Well, no, we're doing it. We're doing it on Quantum. We're doing kind of a double header, right? So Thursday, we bumped our Thursday quantum computing show to Thursday because we did Claude today. And Friday we're gonna do the sci-fi angle of the quantum computing show. So yeah, we'll put information out, but it's 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, and we'd love to have you all there.
Okay, so 1 second, Beth, because I don't think I got this. On Friday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, you guys are going to do a live sci-fi AI show on the topic of quantum computing as it applies to the sci-fi side of the house.
Yeah, or
Did I get
through
it
the
right?
lens of sci-fi, right? Because that really is there's so many things about it. Like, wow. I mean, we've been living in the sci-fi world for a while, but yes, thank you. Thanks for all the demands. And yeah, thanks.
I don't know. Looking just as our last thing, we'll wrap this up. Designed by AI shirt that says designed by AI. Drew says he spent all his money on AI already. So yeah, I don't know. On the tops, we'll have to come back to that and figure out whether that's the merch thing or whatever. I think it's just a matter of there being a demand there, and then it's something that I think we can put more time and effort into and stuff like that. Okay, just curious since it was brought up in the chat on it. If you're watching the show at some other time and you would also be interested in any sort of daily AI show merch, or you'd like to rep a hat or a hoodie or a mug or something like that, by all means, put it in the chat underneath whatever video you're watching this on, and we'll capture the data that way as well. Tomorrow, Beth, you kind of already said it, so I'll keep it short. We have the news tomorrow. On Thursday, we're going to be talking about Microsoft's quantum computing latest research. That was the show we were going to do today, but we wanted to talk about Claude today. And then Friday, yes, we're still doing the N8N show here on the Daily AI show. We're still doing the N8N show. Yeah.
We still love our show.
Yes. And then also the Sci-Fi AI is going on at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on Friday. And the only thing we bumped from this week that we're definitely doing next week is we're definitely having an updated show on AI robotics. So much coming out from Meta and Figure and so many others that we want to devote a whole show to that. So that's what's coming up the rest of this week. Join us tomorrow for the news. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like what we're doing here. And yeah, thanks for hanging out and talking about Claude today. Hopefully you got some value out of this, and maybe you're going to go try it out. Till tomorrow, guys. Bye.
Aloha.